Alrighty, well, we are back with our first episode of In the Bonus of 2024. Fresh year. We're in the swing of conference play. I know. Guys, happy New Year. How were our New Year's? Did you guys make it till the ball dropped? I was asleep before midnight.
I made it. Oh, Happy New Year. I made it to midnight, but I had been flying back from LA that day. So I just had like a nice dinner with family friends, got home a little before midnight, laid on the couch and called it a night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same. I was in Chapel Hill earlier that day. So I had a quick 24-hour trip, knocked the game out, and then got home. My mom made us a seafood dinner, which was awesome. Yeah. So it was a good way to end the year, bring in the new one. My brother is home from Germany. He plays professional soccer there. So anytime he's home, it's just the best family time because we're all finally home. So it was good. And then the new year was here. I feel like it went by so quickly. Like always that stretch from Christmas to New Year's is just it seems like 2 days in between.
Yeah. And it's just another wonky week too with New Year's being on a Monday. I'm I honestly really can't wait until next week to have a full 5 days of normalcy of a Monday through Friday. I'm anticipating it very much so. But Kim, we really haven't chatted too much since you were up in Canada. How was it? I watched the game, listened to your call, amazing as always. How was Canada? How was it seeing Aliyah home? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was really cool. So that was right before the holidays. UConn was playing a game against a college in Toronto. This was for Aliyah Edwards' homecoming game, which Geno always tries to do with his seniors. So it was a really cool experience. The game didn't end up being too good in terms of the level of competitiveness, but I do want to credit Toronto Metropolitan for scheduling that game because not a lot of people would welcome in UConn. And it was really cool talking to their coach. She had grown up watching UConn, watching Tennessee, really looked up to Geno. But the scene for Aliyah was awesome. It was a sold out arena. It sat about 4,000 fans. It was a really historic building. It used to be this huge hockey arena for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've kind of reconfigured the building. So we were playing where it's normally hockey, just a smaller arena, but they made it into basketball that day. So it was sold out. There were so many UConn jerseys. They were selling Aliyah Edwards jerseys, which is NIL. There we go.
Yeah.
Her family was courtside. What else was going on? I mean, there were just so many young girls watching her. She was ecstatic. Just every time you looked at her, she had the biggest smile on her face. She was so happy to be home. And in addition to just the fanfare of the evening, UConn looked really good. Even though it wasn't the caliber of opponent they're going to see in the Big East and beyond, but we saw the freshmen have incredible games. They continue to just rack up the Big East Freshman of the Week awards. But yeah, Toronto was a cool experience, a good way to head into the holidays.
What was your favorite part about Canada?
So I didn't have too much downtime. I did the Twitter route of looking for recommendations. I got a really good Italian recommendation the night after the game because we were a 6 p.m. tip. So I did have a little time to get dinner after. So I went to an awesome Italian restaurant. I'm blanking on the name right now. It's something with a T, but it was great food. It was a really cool atmosphere. They were playing R&B music, which I was not expecting at all. And I'm an R&B girl. So I was just in heaven. What did I get?
Kim.
It seems so long ago now. I can't remember what I got, but I went appetizer. I think I got gelato. I did the full meal. And then I did get to check out this really cool Christmas market before I left. They have a huge Christmas market, lots of vendors, got some hot chocolate. So I wanted to get in the holiday spirit a little bit.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. And our teams this past weekend, after most of them had some time off from their last play, got into the swing. You got into the holiday spirit. They got into the swing of conference play, and it was pretty exciting weekend. Some big time games. I had the opportunity, sticking with UConn here, I was able to go up to the XL Center this weekend and watch UConn take on Marquette. big game, top 20 matchup between those two. It was at the XL Center, and a sold out XL Center, guys, is so much fun. They do the light show pregame. They've got, since the last time I was there for a game, they have the pyro like that goes off when UConn, like when they do the starting lineup. And it's the energy is so much fun. And Marquette looked really good. They came out 10-0 lead to start the first quarter. And I was shocked a little bit. I was like, what's going on here? And then UConn did some UConn things, go on a 13-0 run to close the first quarter, and then end up winning the game 95-64. And Kim, I love that you said, especially during the call with your Toronto game, the freshmen, right? Like we continue to see them. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things that stuck out to me post game was Geno literally said, I don't know where we'd be without our freshmen. And it's such a true statement. You know, KK Arnold, 13 points in that game, Ashlyn Shade, 12 points in that game. And I think the biggest thing that stood out to me while watching it was just a lot of the intangibles that they bring, right? They're getting involved in every play. They're so bought in. Geno was talking about when they're coming to the bench, if he says something to them, they're like, yep, got it. And then they go and do it right away. Next play when they're on. And they like look over to him at the bench and smile. And he's like, all right, laser focus, stay. But it was just a great, great Sunday. For Marquette, I think we were talking about it on one of the past podcasts, I think, and Meghan Duffy even alluded to it after the game, where they're struggling on defense. And it's something that we're, not so used to with Marquette. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they bounce back this week. I mean, they've got everyone now, right? We're in conference play. It's just, you look at so many of these schedules, there are tough schedules throughout, but that's something that Meghan was very adamant about, where it's just like, we need to grow on defense. And they learned a lot, she said, from this game. So it'll be exciting to see how, for the Golden Eagles, that develops for them throughout this season, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. Like we've been praising their offensive improvements this season, but we've always known them as a team that only allows like 60, 65 a game. And I think this is now at least the second game they've given up 90 plus. So it's jarring to see that from a Meghan Duffy led team. But we know her. We know she is gonna get into the film and figure out what's going on that end of the floor. But yeah, it is interesting because we usually know Marquette. Like if we know one thing about them, they're going to bring defense. So
yeah.
I also feel like defense, yes, but also rebounding. I mean, they were minus 15 on the boards in that game, and that is how you finish the possession with the rebound. Then they're able to transition and get into their offense. And so I feel like it's disruptive. Obviously, when a team continues to score, you got to take the ball out, and you got to play against a set defense that just puts your offense at a disadvantage as well. Kim, I just want to go back to these freshmen. Like, what do you think it is about the freshmen that we're seeing? Just, I mean, yes, in the Big East, but across the country that are hooping. Because I just feel like, while we were playing, it was very freshmen. You come in, you learn, you take a seat. You learn from others, and you take a seat. And now we're seeing freshmen leading conferences in scoring. I mean, it's like across the board. Like, what do you think is the difference in just this new age of young players that are fearless?
Yeah, I honestly think it's a testament to how the game is growing. Like having games on TV, like these young ladies are watching the game at an earlier age. Like we weren't able to watch much women's basketball on TV when we were growing up. I think all these little things are adding to it. I think the skill level is getting better across the board. And then there is just a level of confidence that we're seeing from players like Hannah Hidalgo at Notre Dame, Juju Watkins at USC, who's probably like an All-American right now.
Yeah.
The confidence, and it honestly comes from the trust of the coaches too. Like I wasn't given a starting spot as a freshman, even though I was second on the team in scoring. I came in off the bench. But I think coaches.
Yeah, talk that talk, Kim.
Little shade, little shade. But I think, sorry, I'm like losing my voice from all these games. The coaches, I think, and it's like in Geno's case, he has to trust the freshmen with the injuries
Right.
they have. Like he has no other choice. But we're seeing coaches give the reins to players if they deserve them, regardless of what their age is or what their year is.
Mm.
Well, it's going to be exciting to see, right? When you think about it, like this is what they look like as freshmen. And, what treat are we going to be having when they're juniors and seniors? That's what gets me so excited too, to think that you look freshman year and it's just like they're going to continue to get better and smarter with the game, see more styles and looks and everything. So that's exciting for me. But we had plenty of other games besides the UConn game this past weekend. Ice, and we had some surprising wins as well. I think we saw, a lot. What game or two stuck out to you this weekend?
Yeah, for sure. I thought the DePaul Georgetown matchup was so timely. I just thought those two playing each other early in the season, or early in our conference season, was going to be good measuring games for both of them.
Yeah.
DePaul, a team that is trying to find consistent scoring outside of Anea Peoples. And then Georgetown, a team that we have seen rolling. I mean, I think we were a little shocked in, them dropping a game to Seton Hall the week before, because we had thought that they had just come into that game and they were so confident. They started the game, I think they were at a 14-2 lead, but, pulled it out against DePaul 66-62. Here's the stat to me that is like so telling. DePaul only turned the ball over 12 times, which for any coach in the country, turn the ball over 12 times and in a 40-minute span is perfect. Every coach is happy. But Georgetown had 20 points off turnovers, which means these turnovers were live ball turnovers, were red zone turnovers that led to easy points for Georgetown. And so I feel like that is the difference in the game, is where they were able to capitalize, was scoring off of those turnovers. And then, I mean, we can't talk enough about Kelsey Ransom. 23 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, and 5 steals. Like, what? In 38 minutes of play, just extremely efficient as well. 9 for 16 from the field, also knocked down 4 triples. So Kelsey, to me, is emerging as this just like all well-rounded superstar, honestly, in our conference. And I love to see how Coach Haney has been utilizing her in different areas. But that game went down to the wire, 11 lead changes. But really impressed by the way Georgetown was able to pull that out. And I think just for them, you bank on defense, right? As long as your defense travels, you give yourself an opportunity to win. And their defense has been really consistent here. I mean, teams, I would think going into play Georgetown, you're really concerned with your offense. You're really concerned with making the right pass, making the right cut, setting the right screen, because you have to be on point. Otherwise, they're going to blow it up and exploit it.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Looking at another game, this was the big surprise for me. I would say Georgetown winning at DePaul was more of like a statement for me. But when I saw this result, I was very surprised. Providence 51, Seton Hall 46 at
Yes.
Seton Hall. That was a shocker for me. Providence wins at Seton Hall for the first time since 2011. I think our most recent podcast, we had Azana Baines on. The Pirates were playing really well since dropping a couple earlier in the season. They had beaten UNLV, who was undefeated in the top 25. You mentioned that Seton Hall game. They were down 21-2 in the first quarter at Georgetown. They came back and won that game. So we were all kind of thinking like, okay, Seton Hall is emerging as the 4th team in the Big East. You have the 3 ranked teams. And then it was looking like Seton Hall was coming for that 4th spot and maybe going to knock off some of the top 3 teams. But Providence came in and beat them. It was defensive numbers in that game. They held Seton Hall to just 23% shooting, 3 of 27 from
Yeah.
3 for the Pirates. A really tough shooting night. And I'm going to see Providence later this weekend. They'll be on FS1. But what's impressive to me is like it seems like they're still figuring out rotations. They're having different players step up. They're still without a couple players who were in the starting lineup early. So they have new starters. Like I'm looking at the box score. Aliyah Olsen came off the bench. She's been starting, but she played 30 minutes. So Coach Erin Batth, I think, is still figuring out what's working for us, but they're having different players step up. It was Marta Romero. Sorry, I'm getting her name straight. Marta Morales Romero was the big star for them. She also came in off the bench. She finished with 17, but she was one of 3 players in double figures. Providence also commanded the boards in that game. They were +9 on the board. So this is a really interesting Providence team. A new coach, a bunch of new players stepping up into new roles. This was a shocker for me to see that Seton Hall went down at home, where they have traditionally been very good at home. So I've got my eyes on the Friars.
A lot of people after that win said, "Oh, it's bath time." I was like, "We got to get that trending."
Oh, that's good.
That needs to be a shirt.
Yeah, and we need to clap it up for head coach Erin Batth. That was her first Big East win as a head coach of the league. So congratulations for her. And I do think, Kim, to your point, right? A big deal. The Pirates shooting 23, they shot 23.4% overall, lowest shooting since a game in 2013 when they shot 2.6%. So I was there. I was at Walsh for the game, and you could see it really, it was just an off day for Seton Hall. We did speak to Azana though, and that was my first time seeing her play in person in this season, and she just herself specifically looked great. She's got it all. But curious, right? As a player, when your team, you guys are just having such an off day shooting. How do you convince yourselves to keep taking shots, right? Like when you're just like, it feels like nothing's going in. How do you mentally stay locked in a game where nothing seems to be finding it?
Yeah, Meg, great question. Honestly, I think that's just where your IQ comes in as a team, where when you're on the court, you've got to work to get the highest percentage shot possible. And you've got to put 5 players on the court who are bought into that. I think there's a lot of times where, you start getting open threes or you're taking rush shots because you're trying to score 10 points all at once. And so I think that's where composure comes in. But what I'm going to say about this Pirates team is it's so interesting because this is one of the deepest teams in the league. I mean, the amount of transfers that Coach Bozzella brought in, the high-level transfers that have played at other conferences and have played extremely well. And so I think he's also a coach that is tinkering with lineups at this point. I saw Brazil Harvey Carr getting another start. She played 18 minutes, a transfer from the MAC that had a really good career at Manhattan. And so I think maybe for Coach Bozzella, it's also trying to figure out what are our lineups. When we need to stop, what's the go-to lineup? When we need to score in the paint, what's the go-to lineup? When we need to run more, what's the go-to lineup? And figuring out how best players fit with each other, because you can tell through the stats throughout the season that he's still figuring out what are the best lineups on the court and how can he get the most out of his players. And it's a good problem to have when you have such a deep team. But I think in this game, that was an example of it just didn't seem like the lineups worked for him. And they've got to find more consistent scoring. I think you cannot rely on just Azana Baines to have 15, 20 points and then everyone else chip in with 5. It doesn't always work like that.
Yeah. Let's take a look at Villanova Xavier from this past weekend. Wildcats win 86-45. Lucy Olsen, 31 points. She is really starting to shine for Villanova, I will say.
1,000 points for Lucy. Congratulations, Lucy. So happy for you.
Yeah, Lucy, I think, is almost like sneaking up on us because her first 2 years, obviously you're thinking Maddie Siegrist, and Lucy had a great year last year. But this year it's just different levels to this. She's so skilled. Like, she is, I think, underrated as a guard on the national level. Like, more people need to be watching her, talking about her. We're going to be hyping her up. This is now, I don't have the exact number in front of me. This is now multiple 30-point games for her this season. Pretty good efficiency in this game. 12 of 27, just 2 of 9 from 3. But what I also like, she also got 9 rebounds from the point guard spot. So 31 and 9. We're just seeing her score at an incredibly high rate. She's leading the Big East in scoring. Let's see, her average is now 24 a game. I got to check where that is nationally. At one point, she was top 3 nationally in scoring too. So I don't think I expected her to be this big of a bucket. I mean, I knew she was going to have to step up, but she's like, screw it. I'm out here and I'm going to put the team on my back. I do think they're still trying to find more consistent other pieces. Christina Dalsey, 11 in that game. Maddie Weber, a freshman, 11 off the bench. I still think they need more around Lucy because they've had games. The Columbia game comes to mind. She had 30 plus, but they lost that game. So I think they're still trying to find a little bit more, but also in this game, 86-45 defense was really impressive. They allowed just 12 first half points. They forced 32 turnovers. 32 turnovers. So
Goodness.
I thought their defense took a lot of strides last season, and they're continuing to do that this season under Denise Dillon. So yeah, just another team that's kind of in this middle of the pack Big East that's very jumbled right now, where we're still trying to figure them out a little bit. And then one other note I saw from Pam Flanky, there's only 2 teams that are left undefeated in Big East play right now. Like UConn is 2-0 and Providence is 1-0. And then there's a whole bunch of teams that are 1-1.
Yeah.
So we are in for a very exciting conference play season,
to say the least. And just quick on that, that was Lucy's 5th game where she scored 30 or more points. And
That's
she's
crazy.
Crazy. And she's tied for 4th right now in the NCAA Division
Wow.
1. Let's
Big
go,
time.
Lucy. Represent Lucy.
Go, girl.
Meg, I wanted to hint at Creighton St. John's game.
Yes.
Another talk about, teams that are 1-1. Both of these teams now 1-1, and Creighton got the edge over St. John's, 67-56. Here's what I'm going to say about St. John's.
Okay.
And Kim and I have talked about this. They had the correct game plan in limiting 2 of the big 3, right? Morgan Molly only scored 8 points, Kim. Emma Ronsick only scored 7 points, Kim.
Ugh.
Now, Lauren Jensen did drop 20, and that's what Lauren Jensen is going to do. She's 7-10 from the field, 4 threes. It was just a normal day for her. But they had the correct recipe in order to win. Who they failed to guard was Kennedy Townsend coming off the bench. The sophomore with 14 points in 23 minutes, and that's extremely timely. And this is why Jim Flannery is one of the best, why this team is so good, is because in their system, as long as you're cutting correctly, you're moving the ball, you're knocking down shots, anyone can put the ball in the basket. So I think St. John's had the right formula in trying to limit 2 out of the 3. They were successful in doing that. I don't know how many games this season we've seen 2 out of the 3 not score in double figures, and this team still win. So it's unfortunate for the Red Storm because I think they defensively, they did almost all the right things besides just, team defense. And that's just why Creighton is so tough, because it just, to some degree, it doesn't matter. Even if the big 3 don't go off, they find a way to score the basketball so efficiently. And that, to me, looking at the stats, that was the only difference in this game, was just the bench scoring and being able to come in and make an impact.
Ice, diving deeper in that, though, how dangerous is Creighton's offense, to your point that you can have someone come off the bench and it's just, you go in thinking you've got the recipe for success and it's like, oops, nope, we've got you.
Yeah, I feel like this is why tournament time a couple years ago, they were in the Elite 8 because they're one of the worst teams to play. Like, I feel like when you're in the tournament, you're waiting for the 64 and you're thinking about teams that you just do not want to see. It's Creighton, it's Princeton, it's South Dakota State. Why? Because they make you play defense, because everyone on the court can score. It really doesn't matter the scout. They can all knock down threes. They all set amazing screens. They all play team defense. So I just feel like for them, it's the sky's the limit. I think for Creighton, the difference down the stretch of conference play and tournament play is just their defense, because offensively, they've got tons of weapons and they've got a system that the best teams in the country have a tough time guarding.
I think it is a scary thought if the big three are all on one night, which again, like we haven't seen in the Marquette loss. Morgan Molly did not play well. You know who's hoping that they don't all play well is Geno Auriemma, because the Huskies are heading out to Omaha, if you're watching this on Wednesday, tonight. But it's a scary scene, but I think if I'm Jim Flannery, they got to find a little bit more consistency in terms of like two of the big three playing well on a given night, because you are winning games, but if you want to finish in the top two, top three of the Big East, you got to have two of those three playing really well. And then the additional contributors, like we saw Kennedy Townsend, we've seen Molly Mogensen. So I'm sure he'd like a little bit more wiggle room in terms of his top three. He'd love them all to play well. But I think you got to bank, he would love to bank on two of them playing well. I'm really excited to see what happens in Omaha tonight.
Well, and on that note, it's funny you saying that, Kim, just reminded me of something Geno said post game after their Marquette game. He said, and he included himself in this, it sounded like, he said, I don't think anyone will go undefeated in Big East play this season. I mean, okay, that's that's a loaded statement. That really is.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a couple weeks ago when UConn was struggling, for the first time since they've re-entered the Big East, I thought somebody else may win the Big East this year. It might be Marquette, it might be Creighton. Now that I see how UConn is playing, I see that this is going to be a very tall task for another team to do. But it is interesting that he would say that, and you have to kind of circle tonight's matchup in Omaha as one of those potential losses for UConn.
Mm-hmm. I think sorry, Meg. I think in just basketball and like loving basketball, that's the great thing about it, is that anytime, any game, someone can get beat. But I also will say this about the Huskies right now. They're relying on freshmen. And as good as KK Arnold is, as good as Ashlyn Shade is, they are still freshmen. They still can get beat on a back door. They still can forget to talk in transition. And so I think Creighton, a team that is super experienced, knows how to win, abundance of chemistry, is the right recipe of a team to beat them. I think that we could have said the same about Marquette in that way, right? Like tough defensively, but then also has that experience on the other side. And so I think if we're watching this game tonight, that could be the factor and the difference. It might not necessarily be the stats, but it may look and just say, man, just Creighton is experienced right now, and the Huskies are relying on young talent. And they've been producing well, but we know freshmen. It's day to day, right? It's day to day. It's hard to keep it consistent. You're new to this thing.
Well, let's stick with the games that we've got going on today on Wednesday when this podcast drops, because I'm fired up. I get to hear and listen to and watch my ladies this week. Ice, you're on a game. Seton Hall, you have tonight. The Pirates are hosting Villanova. So let's start there with just some of the excitement you've got for what's coming up.
Yeah, for sure. This will be my first time seeing Villanova in person this year. I'm really excited to see them. I think what Kim said earlier about them is important. Just finding those other pieces, like who now in conference play is going to step up and be consistent. And then for Seton Hall, really looking to see what their rotations look like. Like, what do the best lineups on the floor look like for them when they go on a run, when they get a couple of steals back to back? Who was on the floor during that time? I'm going to keep my eye on Brazil Harvey Carr. I followed her journey. She's originally like from the South Jersey area, but she had a very good career at Manhattan and in the MAC. And I just feel like she's that type of player for Seton Hall that can make a difference. Like, she's inside out. She can knock down shots from the outside. She can also play inside. And she started off this season slow because she was coming back from injury. So now I think she's getting more reps underneath her. She's recently started for them. I think she's a player that could really help Azana Baines out a ton.
Kim, you are with you're we've got like kind of like New York, New Jersey games.
Yeah, right across the bridge. We should meet for dinner, Kim. We're right there.
Yeah. I'll be in Queens. Marquette is visiting St. John's. This is an interesting one because I feel like Marquette is going to come in with just lit up underneath them, because I feel like Megan Duffy probably was like, what are we doing on defense, ladies? After the UConn game, after the last couple games, like I just have a sense that Megan Duffy really lit into them and is challenging them, holding them more accountable, challenging her players to hold each other more accountable. So I feel like this is a dangerous spot for St. John's. Like it's tough to welcome in a team that just got lit up like that, because they're going to be hungry to get back at it. But then again, St. John's also just had a tough road loss at Creighton. I'm sure they're excited to come back home. Unique Drake has been putting together an incredible season, amongst the leaders in the Big East in scoring. They too are a team that I think them and Nova are very similar this season in terms of last year to this season. They too are looking for third and fourth consistent scorers. They have Jillian Archer, who's been successful for them inside. Obviously, Unique Drake, but they need more, especially against a team like Marquette that has such balanced scoring. So that should be a fun one. In Queens, Meg, I'll give you one more that'll be interesting. These games are all happening at the same time, so we gotta get the multiple screens. But Georgetown at Butler, it'll be Butler's second Big East game. They faced UConn in the first one. This is a Butler team that knocked down, I think it was 7 of their 9 threes in the first quarter and held a lead at UConn in that game. And we talked about how Georgetown is rolling, so that's an interesting one for me as well to really see how this Butler team, we know they've been playing much better in the non-conference. How are they going to stack up in the Big East in year 2 under Austin Parkinson? So that'll be a fun one too, Georgetown at Butler.
Love that. And then you're part of an FS1 doubleheader this upcoming weekend as well. Love that.
Yeah. We've got Creighton at DePaul, 4 p.m. Eastern, and then I'll be on St. John's at Providence, 6 p.m. So definitely make sure you are tuning in Saturday evening.
Love it. Love it so much.
Go.
I think, and Ice, I'm crediting you with saying this because I was listening. This is my favorite part where I'm the luckiest human being in the whole entire world. I get to host this podcast and learn and listen from you guys week in and week out. And Ice, I love how you were saying earlier that January is like your favorite time of basketball because when you finally get to these games and you're watching these teams, there's so much nuggets and stats for you to really pull from that you're able to say, okay, now we get into the nitty gritty and the numbers and all that stuff. It's fun basketball. It feels like even more real than, some of the early season games, which makes it even more fun for us that we get to break them down after the fact.
No, for sure. I just love Kim. I love that we're doing national games and we still get to cover the Big East, right? That's just amazing. And that we're in a league that is being played nationally and that it's constantly getting more recognition and players are getting seen more. And I think just too, like keeping it up front, Big East still 3 teams in the top AP 25. Like UConn has shot up a little bit. They're now at number 12. I'm sure for them, it's on their radar to try to get back into the top 10, which just means that they're going to have to be consistent here in conference play, which means this game against Creighton is that much more important. Marquette 18 and then Creighton 21. And so I think for the Big East, it's just staying as deep as you possibly can. We saw that Seton Hall was right there in terms of almost getting to the top 25. This week, Syracuse got the edge because they had a big win over Notre Dame across the board, nationally speaking now. But could Seton Hall be a team that cracks that? Cool. I'll give you one as well. Could Georgetown also be a team that cracks that? I think Georgetown has a fantastic opportunity this season to allow defense to travel, to be tough for Tasha, and to really make some noise. And if they pull off a couple of top wins in this league, I think they will definitely be a top 25 team. I think their defense alone.
I was just gonna say Georgetown is 7-0 on the road this season. They have to be leading the country in road wins. Ooh. Like we'll get our research team on that. They're 7-0 on the road.
That's dangerous. That
I'm searching for you, but I can't get that one that fast.
I love it. That's dangerous. That is a literal defense travels type of team. That is awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's just you can't stress enough too of just like what Georgetown has gone, that's an underlying, it's going to be there with them throughout this season. And I think it's just so impressive for the Hoyas. I love that. Ladies, it's been such a blast. I'm so happy we're back together.
2024.
2024 about to be a big year for us and for the Big East. We're excited to see what's going to happen. We ready to close this thing down?
Let's hear your roll. We've been
Let's
waiting
do
on
it.
it.
Do we have a different jingle for 2024? Are we mixing up the list?
Maybe I'm going to just switch it up on all of us.
Okay.
Be sure to subscribe to In the Bonus by the Big East Conference on your preferred podcast listening platforms such as, here we go, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Deezer, TuneIn, Radio Public, Pandora, Overcast, Odyssey, Samsung Podcast, Pocket Cast, Player FM, Simplecast, and Apple Podcast, as well as the Big East Conference YouTube page, and make sure to like, share, and review. You can also visit bigeast.com for more conference news and information. We'll see you next week for another episode of In the Bonus. Woo-hoo!